So we are in Parashat Tzav. We just finished the Parasha of Vayikra, where we started learning about all the korbanot, about the sacrifices. The entire book of Vayikra is also called the Book of Sacrifices. And the majority of the book of Vayikra is concentrating on all the sacrifices. How to do it, when to do it, the type of the sacrifice, what is the sacrifice for, so many details about the sacrifices. Which of course raises a very big question, is that the sacrifices, they don't look like such a Jewish thing. Looks like a very barbaric ritual where you take animals and slaughter them and throw them on an altar, and you read all the description, it doesn't look like such a holy thing. And of course, where does this come from? And why is the Torah putting so much emphasis on the sacrifices? So, of course, there's a more mystical explanation, there's more practical things that we can learn from that and apply it in our life. And this week we're starting to learn about a certain sacrifice that is called Korban Olah. Olah means to go up, to elevate, to ascend. The parasha starts with the verse, Esh tamid tukad al hamizbeach lo tichbeh. A constant fire should be burning on the altar and never turn out, never be extinguished. Our sages teach us that this Esh tamid, this constant fire, is a remedy to cancel and to annul any type of bad thoughts that I have. And the reality is that our thoughts are constantly running in our mind, 24/7, they don't even stop for 1 second. And if we really focus on our thoughts, we see that we have a lot of thoughts that are not good thoughts, not pure thoughts. It can be not pure thoughts about other people. It can be judgmental, jealous, angry, and many other types of thoughts can come up to my mind. And then of course comes also some impure thoughts that has nothing to do with other people. It just has to do with me. Things that I would want to do, that I would like to do, or what I wish to do. But constantly we are battling with our thoughts. The thought is a very refined garment of our soul, because our soul is a very holy being. And I'm referring to specifically the level of the soul that is called neshama. I mean, we know there are 5 levels of the soul. But the soul is a very holy being. And in order for the soul to interact in this world, it needs to get dressed, so to say, into garments, like a puppet. Take now a puppet, and if it doesn't have a hand inside, then the puppet is a piece of cloth. But put the hand in the puppet and start moving the hand, the puppet comes to life, has expressions, has movements. In order for the soul to relate with this world, it has to be dressed into garments. Specifically 3 major garments of thought, speech, and action. That's how their soul interacts with the world. The garment of thought is a very refined thought, a very refined garment, and it's the type of garment that we don't have much control over. Speech, you can control your speech. I mean, I know some people can't control their speech, but speech you can control it, and actions you can also control it. Thoughts, you almost can't control your thoughts. And thoughts come into your mind, like in a flash of light, and you have to now know how to push away your thoughts. And all day long you have battling your thoughts. Most people is throughout the day, they have conversations with themselves. Very few people, they're busy, they keep themselves busy to a point that they're not really stopping to think too much. But when you're by yourself, you're lying in bed, you're sitting in traffic, you're traveling on a bus, whatever it is, you have thoughts. You constantly have thoughts that are running in your mind. Very few people know how to control the thoughts. Many few people know how to keep the thoughts just positive and good. And we all battle with thoughts that are negative thoughts, impure thoughts, bad thoughts, that it cause us to be angry, can cause us to be sad, can cause us anxiety and fear. But everything, it originates in the mind. Now comes this certain sacrifice that is called Korban Olah. Korban is a sacrifice, Olah means goes up. And our sages say specifically this sacrifice is a remedy or a power. I don't like using really the word remedy. In Hebrew it's called sgula. Not a power that allows me to push away bad thoughts. And that's something that I would want to know how to really apply into my life. And the bad thoughts is not necessarily just me thinking bad about somebody else or me being judgmental to somebody. And the bad thoughts can also be that I'm worried and I have fear and anxiety and how am I going to pay the next bill, or what's going to happen with my child, is he or she going to get married, or constantly I have these thoughts that are also bad thoughts. Now, when I have bad thoughts, you know what it will cause right away? It's going to cause, in Hebrew it's called hirhurei halev. So to say, the feelings and the emotions that will be aroused in my heart. So even though my heart doesn't have a brain, my heart doesn't think really, but we all know that the thoughts will affect right away my feelings and my emotions. If I have positive thoughts, then it will arouse me to be happy, to be satisfied, to be excited. Bad thoughts will arouse me to be depressed and sad and worried and having anxieties and fear and sadness, and the list can go on and on. But the thought has a very powerful force to affect my heart, even though it's just a thought. And sometimes a thought can flash into my brain and take me to a completely different journey. You know, the Baal Shem Tov says you are where you think. Sometimes I can be sitting here, I can be present here, and my mind is completely somewhere else. Now, we have learned many times that our actions and our speech and our thought has a certain power. With my action, I don't see that. But if I will push now somebody physically, I will see how the person will fall down. But even without me pushing something, if I just wave my hand, I'm moving things in the universe. A certain energy. My hand has energy. My body has an energy. Same thing with my speech. I actually create angels when I speak. I mean, we call it angels, but people, you say the word angel, they're imagining somebody with the wings, flying with a ring over their head. Angel is an energy. It's a messenger, so to say. An energy that carries something from one place to another. My speech is so powerful that we learned in so many different times how my speech can create not only an energy, it can create an existence. I can have positive speech and I can have negative speech. One of the last lectures I gave last week in New York was about the power of speech and letters. It's probably going to go online in the next couple of days. You should watch it because I explain there really what the power of our words are. But the same way that our actions and our words have the power of destroying and creating, also our thoughts are so powerful that I can destroy or create with my thoughts. That's how powerful my thoughts are. Now, again, you don't see it necessarily physically, but my thoughts are very, very powerful. And, there's an example that this was proven medically, that when a person is very, very happy, the white blood vessels, they multiply much, much faster. In millions. I think the count was like 12 million, I don't know how you call it in English, the kaduriot, the dots in the blood. There's the red ones and the yellow, the white ones. Nevertheless, when a person is very happy, the white blood cells, they multiply in huge quantities, and it causes a person to heal. That's why now it's very popular. They bring in clowns to hospitals and all sorts of, they bring clowns to make the people laugh and to lighten up. And so, but nevertheless, this is an example how, when I'm happy, it's, really mainly it's in my brain, the happiness. So, and I can, develop growth in my blood cells just by changing my attitude in my brain. Now, there is a saying by our sages that it says that a thought of doing a sin is worse than the sin. It's called hirhur avera, that I'm thinking of doing a sin, but I'm actually not even doing it. And our sages say the thought is worse than the action. And sometimes this is a common thing, that you're thinking of a certain sin, and you're not even doing that. You're just thinking, you're imagining it, you're picturing it in your mind, you're thinking of it, and you didn't even do it. And our sages say the thought, the hirhur of the sin is worse than the sin. Which of course brings a very big question. How can that be? And the question is that I get punished, so to say, about an action that is a sin. But I don't get punished from a thought that is a sin. How can the sages say that the thoughts are worse than the action? Now it says in the Talmud that it doesn't say that it's severe. It says in the Talmud that the thought is harder than the action. Hirhur kashe me'avera. Now what does it mean harder? Harder means more stiff. In fact, the actual action is worse than the thought, because the thought, I actually didn't do it. But when it says it's harder to uproot it. To uproot and to stop doing an action is one thing, but to uproot and to stop thinking, that's much, much harder. So when our sages say that hirhur, that a thought is worse than the sin, it's not talking about the physical, actual sin. Rather, it's talking about uprooting it from my system. So I can now, for example, stop, I'm going to stop being judgmental. I'm going to stop being jealous. So I might not do it in action, but to really cut it out, that in my mind, there are many situations that, we just spoke before, how sometimes, unfortunately, it's very common in a congregation, can be an argument between the board, the rabbi, whatever it is. Unfortunately, we see it all the time. And a lot of the times there's arguments between friends, family members, community. And then everybody's pretending that everything is fine and they're stopping the fighting, and externally nothing happens. But deep down inside, there's still the thoughts and the emotions. Maybe it doesn't come out to the surface, but deep down inside, the person is still upset, still judgmental, still jealous, still angry. That's why our sages say to uproot the level of the thought is much, much harder. To not apply it to action, okay, good, so you didn't do it in action. Because you know what, you're smart, and you don't want to get into an argument, a confrontation, you don't want to cause problems. But it's much harder to stop hating in your mind than to hate practically or being judgmental or jealous. That's why our sages say that the thoughts are worse than the action, not worse in their severity, rather that it's much harder to get rid of. To really get rid of it in your mind, that you're not angry at the person anymore, you're not jealous or judgmental or whatever it is. Now, comes a very unique commandment that we read every day, and we read it in Kriyat Shema Lamita, and our Torah is commanding me not to follow my eyes. I read it every day in Kriyat Shema Lamita. You should not follow your heart and not follow your eyes. Now, this is a very hard commandment. How do you want me not to follow my eyes? I mean, it's right in front of me. And there's many different explanations. What does it mean not to follow your heart, not to follow your eyes? Basically, I can't let my eyes or my heart lead me. Now, the word that it says in Hebrew, it says taturu. Taturu comes from the word in Hebrew that is called tayar. Tayar is a tourist. Now, we have a very touristic city here. The numbers are showing that about 1.2 million tourists come to Tzfat every year. 1.2 million. But if you're walking around here in the streets, you see there's constantly tourists here. Now, sometimes I see, my house is right here on the corner, so my father always says, you like the tourist information, everybody stops, well, how do I get here? How do I get here? Well, you're asking, what I look like a tour guide. So my house is literally on the corner, and we have this big porch overlooking her. Everybody stops and asks. Sometimes I go from one point to another point, and everybody stops and asks, how do I get to that show? How do I get to this? How do I even live here? Well, it says here that I live here. But nevertheless, a tourist usually starts walking around, especially here in Tzfat. You walk around, you don't know where you're going to end up. Where you go in all the little alleys and all the little streets, you're going from one place, you don't know when you're going to come out. And then sometimes you go in circles. Sometimes I hear people, when I sit on the porch, I hear people saying, we're walking in circles, we were here already. So tourists, if they don't have a tour guide, they very quickly to get lost. And they don't mind getting lost. I'm looking at the scenery, I'm checking out the beautiful sights, and I don't mind if I'm on vacation. I'm not in a hurry to go anywhere. But that's the mind frame of a tourist, that you just explore, you go, hey, let's go see what's going on in there. You go over there, hey, let's go and check what's going on. Okay, we're going over there. And that's a tourist. That he doesn't have, necessarily a plan. This is the word taturo, that I don't know where I'm going to end up. A tourist doesn't, I'm not talking about, I'm talking in general. Don't need to start now arguing, and if you have a guide, and if you have an app now, there's all these tour guide apps. I'm just talking in general, the idea, just that you get to the depth of what I'm thinking. A tourist, when he walks around, doesn't know where he's going to end up. If you remember, a few months ago, I went to London, and my record is, this trip went through smooth, but my record is that I always get stuck, I always miss flights, always something happens. So one of my last trips when I went to London, then I missed my flight, as usual. That's a common thing, that I miss flights. Why should I come to the flight on time? Anyways, so we missed our flight, and the funny thing was that I went to give a tour of lectures, and also it was a special visit because one of our students, she got married, and I went to London to officiate the wedding. It was a very special tour. Anyways, long story short, it was my daughter's bat mitzvah, and my mother was planning on taking my daughter to some vacation somewhere. And my daughter says, hey, let's go with Abba to London. So they came with me. So they were touring around in the city and all the attractions, and I was giving my lectures, and I spent time with them. Nevertheless, on the way back, we all go to the airport. My mom somehow gets on the plane, and my daughter and me missed the flight.
Oh, yeah.
So my daughter was very happy because we got another 4 days in London, and more than that, it was a Thursday, so we had to stay a Shabbat, and the only flight that they were willing to give me without any addition in the cost was only leaving on Tuesday. So, and a whole day layover in Barcelona. Wow. So, a normal person will be like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Both my daughter and me like, hey, great, we're getting another 4 days in London and a tour in Barcelona. Yeah. So it was my daughter's bat mitzvah, so everybody was happy, besides my wife. So it was very nice. We took some days. One day we toured around in the city of London, but the next day when we went to Barcelona, we landed early in the morning, and I had the whole day. The flight was like at 12 a.m. after a whole day. We locked our bags in the airport, and we went to the old city, and we tourists. So, we started in one point. There was a very rich Jewish lifestyle in Barcelona. We toured around. We were tourists. We were just walking around. My daughter's like, where are we going? I don't know, let's just go. And we were walking into different alleys and different places, and at the end, we went in from one place, came up to the other place. The whole day we were touring, which was beautiful. And the point is that the tourist doesn't know where he's ending up. And that's exactly when the Torah says, Lo taturu achei levavchem. Don't be a tourist going after your heart that you don't know where it's going to take you. And after your eyes. It's very easy to look at something and you don't know where it's going to take you. And usually when you look at things not in the right way, it takes you to a completely different place. And you follow your eyes. That's how we fall into sins. Is that I follow something that they say, catches your eye. So, the thing is that here it's talking about specifically my heart and my eyes. But there's also the same exact thing as with my thoughts. My thoughts can very quickly wander. Now, our thoughts are so powerful that if a person thinks negative, it will become negative. And if a person thinks positive, it will become positive. That's how powerful our thoughts are. A famous Hasidic saying, think good and it will be good. If you think very negative, oh, it's not going to work out, this is not going to work, then you're bringing this energy on you. But when you're thinking positive, then you make things positive. Now, we're very close to Pesach. Next week is already Pesach, and we're going to read in the Haggadah that the Egyptians, it says, Vayareu otanu ha-Mitzrayim, that the Egyptians made us bad. They made us bad. Yareu comes from the word in Hebrew ra. They made us evil and bad. Now what does that mean? That they made us become bad. They when you are in a bad environment, you acquire the qualities of where you are. And the Egyptians, part of their agenda was to make us bad, is to make us be rotten behavior. And sometimes there was certain countries or nations or leaders that wanted to just kill us. Haman just wanted to kill us. No, not too much thinking here, just to kill right away. Some other rulers wanted to exile us or to torture us. One of Paro's agendas was to make us bad. I don't want to kill you, I just want you to become bad. Because when you're bad and you're spoiled and your entire behavior is negative, that's what I want you. Sometimes that's the agenda. And here, specifically, that's what Paro wanted. That's what the Egyptian wanted. They wanted to make us bad. Now, this is something that we don't even realize much, but the reason why when God created the world, He created a system that our soul is being placed in our body, because believe it or not, the body is there to develop the soul and to refine the soul. Because before the world was created, what was bad where we were? I mean, nobody of us remembers, but I can tell you, it wasn't bad where we were. Why do we have to come down here and start all over? And who needs this headache? We were very comfortably sitting where we were sitting in the heavens next to Hashem. And why did we need all that? Because Hashem wanted to refine us. We say that every day when we pray. Ratzah HaKadosh Baruch Hu lezakot et Israel. Hashem wanted to give us more merits. But the Zohar says, don't say the word lezakot, rather lezakech. Hashem wanted to refine us. He wanted to elevate us to a much more spiritual and higher level than where we were. So He says, okay, how do I refine you? I will put you in this world in bodies, and you're going to climb higher and higher with your bodies. So really the body is the tool to refine my soul. And it's not, a lot of people think, and especially in different faiths, that the body is secondary. And a lot of faiths actually harm the body in many different ways to feel much more spiritual. Some faiths, the fakirim, I don't know how you say it in English, maybe fakirs, but they harm their body. They actually torture their body to feel much more holy and to be much more spiritual. Which in Judaism, you're not allowed to harm your body. You're not allowed even to make a tattoo on your body. It's not your body. Your body is holy. You're not allowed to harm the body in any way. There's actually a mitzvah, a prohibition, that I have to guard my body. I'm not allowed to damage my body in any ways. That's why I don't understand how specifically in the observant world it's accepted that you're allowed to smoke. I don't even know why there's no awareness in the observant world. Why are you allowed to, you're not allowed to hurt your body in any way? This is a direct prohibition from the Torah. That I have to v'shmartem lenafshotechem meod. I have a direct commandment that I have to take care of my body. And then you see people smoking. I mean, that's when I became observant. I was like, how come there's no any campaign in the Orthodox world that you're not allowed to smoke? So
all have anxiety and they're trying to
maybe, but you can calm yourself with other things. But nevertheless, of course with worse. But the point is that we have to take care of our body, because our body is the tool to serve us to refine and build the soul. How can I do that? Because I refine my soul through doing a mitzvah. How can I do a mitzvah without a body? How can I refine myself not in physical mitzvot. I have to refine myself with being honest, not being judgmental, not to have anger, not to be impatient, not to be jealous. How can I do that without a body? The soul is not jealous. There's no jealousy between souls. And there's no anger between souls. This is a body thing. But the Kadosh Baruch Hu put me in this world with different challenges that I can battle it. He puts me in a situation that I will have to be angry. I don't have to, but I will develop anger and jealousy and all sorts of other character traits. Why? Because when I overcome it, then I refine my soul. If I'm born with a problem with anger, it's not a defect. It's not a birth defect. Rather, this is the category of work what I have to refine. I have to refine the attribute of anger. And by me overpowering my anger, I'm refining my soul. And this is a very short explanation of how I actually elevate and refine my soul. But when I'm able to fight my desire, that's when my soul gets an elevation. And I will have different desires. Some of us share the same desires, and some of us no. One person has a desire for food, another person has a desire for, I don't know what, for a game, and another person has a desire for a movie. Of course, I'm talking here about things that are not permitted. And the things that are permitted, I also have desires. I mean, I'm allowed to eat, but it doesn't mean I have to have 17 cookies. I mean, one cookie is enough. You don't have to go overboard here. So, but nevertheless, I constantly have to battle my desire, my yetzer. When I'm able to overpower my desire, that's when my soul gets a raise, an elevation. Because I was able to subdue my desire, whether it's for something that is severely not right, and like a severe sin, or when it's something that I'm allowed to, but I'm controlling myself. Bechlal, this is not what we're going to talk about now, but the whole idea of Pesach is to learn how to control myself. And we're going to talk about it in the next class. I don't want to ruin the surprise, but the idea of Pesach is to go out of my own slavery. And my slavery is that I don't know how to tell myself no. And I need to know how to put myself under control. The sad part is that I'm trying to put everybody around me under control, but the only one who needs to be under control is me, not the people around me. I'm trying to control people trying to control their wife, their employees, their kids, and put yourself under control. Then they go and put other people under control. You don't have to put people under control. And Pesach is the spiritual power that allows me to put myself under control, needless to say with things that are prohibited, and of course in the things that are permitted, but I still have to be under control. And when I'm under control, that's the ultimate freedom. And this all goes back again to the level of thoughts. And I need to know how to control my thoughts. Now, when I mentioned before that the thinking of the sin is worse, because the thought, it designs the personality of the person. So if I know how to control my thoughts, then the personality will be designed in a certain way. If I don't control my thoughts, and my thoughts are just go wherever they are, then I'm, so to say, designing my personality to be exactly the same way, just on the outside. That's why the thoughts, our sages considered our thoughts to be much, much worse. Because if I know how to control my thoughts in a situation, not to be judgmental, to reach to a situation that I'm looking at something that's going on and I'm not being judgmental here is very, very hard. Most people, they will look at a situation and right away, they can kill a person with their thoughts and being very judgmental. To control that, that's not easy. And not only that, my jealousy and my anger and my reactions. Sometimes I know how to control my thoughts, so my reaction is not going to be so bad. And when I don't know how to control my thoughts, then it will trickle into my reaction, and then my reaction will be severe. That's why the thought is considered much worse than the action. And like I mentioned before, the Baal Shem Tov says that you are exactly where your thoughts are. And that's very easily can explained. Sometimes, I mean, we all experience it in one way or another, that we go through disappointment in our life. And just for the sake of the example, sometimes you break up from a relationship and you get very disappointed. you had hopes, whatever it is, your emotions are hurt, whatever that. And you can go now to a party because your friends tell you, come on, let's just go out and relax, just to get your mind off what you're thinking of. And you can be in a party, in a happy place, music, dancing, fun, and your mind is like, you're thinking of something completely else. You're in a party, you're in a happy environment, but your thoughts are in a very bad place. And this is just one example out of many. So I heard once an example exactly on the same topic, that there was a certain individual who was a Holocaust survivor who saw with their own eyes how their entire family is being slaughtered, and needless to say the horror that person saw. And many years later, when it was time for one of the grandkids or the great-grandkids to get married, the person was at the wedding. What can be better, being in a simcha of your grandkid or your great-grandkid, whatever it was. Such an auspicious time, and the wedding and music and happiness. And the person, suddenly the thoughts take the person to one of the scenes, and he's in a wedding, but the thoughts are in 1941 in a death camp or wherever it is, and you see the person is in a completely different place. So that when the Baal Shem Tov says you are where your thoughts are, there's a story that one time the Baal Shem Tov had a very small minyan. He didn't have big shuls, and he used to travel a lot. There's a story that one time he's praying, and right after the peak of the prayer, the Shmona Esrei, the standing up prayer, he turns around to the person next to him and says to him, Shalom Aleichem. The person says, what do you mean Shalom Aleichem? I've been here for the last 45 minutes. He's like, oh no, you were at the market. I wasn't at the market. I was here the whole time. He says, well, your body was here the whole time, but your mind was in the market on your business. How are you going to sell? How are you going to buy? So we are where our thoughts are. So now comes the $1 million question. How do you control your thoughts? And especially, how do you control evil thoughts? How many times do you catch yourself having bad thoughts? I'm not going to mention a name, but there's one individual in our community, very nice man. And the other day, I saw him walking with this, I don't know if to call it a clicker, I don't know what it is, but you find it when you go to like a mall or a store or a big stadium, and somebody clicks every time somebody walks in. It counts like a counter. And I see him with this counter every time he clicks. And I told him, what are you clicking there? He says, every time I have a bad thought, I click. And at the end of the day, I want to see how many bad thoughts I had. How many impure thoughts, how many bad thoughts. So if you remember, I told you many times that a few years ago, I wanted to jump up in my level of self-refinement, and I was very bothered by my own behavior that I would lie a lot. It bothered me. It just bothered me that's lies that were coming out of my mouth. And when I came back, it was Yom Kippur. That's when I came to the realization that I want to make a change. And I came home, and it was after Yom Kippur, 24 hours. I wasn't even home, didn't see my wife. Comes after Yom Kippur, I go home, we put the kids to sleep, and my wife and me are sitting and having a cup of tea. We're talking, and I told her, no, you have a hachlata, a resolution for the year. She was like, yes, I decided to do this, I decided to do that. And she tells me, what's your resolution? So I told her, I decided to stop lying. She tells me, you? You don't lie. I says, well, I lie. I lie to you, I lie to him, I lie to her, I lie to everybody, and you know what, worse than that, I lie to God. And worse than that, I lie to myself. And I can't stand it. I don't want to lie anymore. So I went and bought this little notebook, and every time that I lied, I would write the lie and the hour. And would come the end of the day, when I would sit on my bed and say Kriyat Shema L'Amita, and I would open the notebook and find a page full of lies. 30 lies, 40 lies, 50 lies, and nonsense. Really nonsense. Exaggerating is also a lie. Little lies. I'm not talking about now, frauding people for millions of dollars. No, lie. A lie is a lie. People, some Sometimes people come up with colors. They say, oh, it's a white lie.
Oh.
I don't know who defined it, the lies to be a white. Why can't it be a blue lie? So,
Can you give us an example of that?
of a lie?
Of a white lie?
A white lie, you are on your way to an appointment and you know you are late because you took your time or you wake up late or you were lazy. You are late. And the person who's waiting for you is calling you. Hey, how are you? Great. When are you coming? I'm there in 5 minutes. No, you're not. You're there in 20 minutes. The GPS tells you there in 20 minutes. Why are you saying you're there in 5 minutes? And you know you're there in 20. Just say, I'm so sorry. I got distracted. I got busy. I got lazy. I'm sorry. I'm going to be late. I'm going to be there in 20 minutes. When you think that when you're saying I'm there in 5 minutes, what do you really think? You think the person is going to get hit by a star and forget time? Or you're going to be late after 20 minutes? He's just going to forget that time has passed? You think the person on the other side is a fool? That they're not going to notice that you're late? What, they're going to somehow get sucked into a void of time when they don't feel time? Why didn't you say right from the beginning, I'm sorry, I'm going to be late? So this is one example out of many. And sometimes somebody will call you and you really don't feel like talking or whatever. You're saying, where are you? I'm at the mall. But you're not. You're sitting at home. So and I would catch myself on this. Why do I have to say that? You don't want to please, you don't want to get into an argument, whatever it is. The point is that I wanted to clean that my domain, that there's not even one distortion in anything that I said. Say the truth, exactly how it is. And according to halakha, exaggerating is a lie. It's not the truth. Now, when you are used to lying to people, you start lying to God. And God is like, come on, I'm the master of the universe. I read thoughts. I know you are lying right now. So, and worse than that, then I start lying to myself. And that's the worst. And I start lying to myself in a situation. I'll give you an example because a lot of people say, what do you mean I lie to myself? Well, it could be that I am involved in an argument right now and I'm 100% wrong. And I will start lying to myself, she is wrong. She started. She did this. She did that. No. Why are you lying to yourself? Just admit and say, who am I kidding? I'm the wrong one here. I should now initiate and so go and apologize and say, you know what, I'm wrong. But then comes my ego and tells me, no, you're not. And then I start lying to myself. So the point is that we're not going to make a class now how we lie, but we are liars. We lie a lot. Constantly we lie. We lie to ourselves. We lie to people around us. We lie to God. And I got to a point that I was like, I don't want one lie, one distortion of the truth coming out of my mouth. So I would catch myself. I would say an answer, somebody would ask me something, I would say A. Right away I would be like, no, it's not A, it's B. And I would catch myself on the lie and right away fix it. But I would write it down. And why? So I can have an account at the end of the day, how many lies. If I don't monitor it, then I say, okay, I lie a lot. But when I have it in front of me on a paper, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, oh my God, 35 lies. So the same guy, he clicks every time he has a bad thought. Do it for 1 week. I can guarantee to you, you're going to have a lot of clicks every time you have a bad thought. So how do you control bad thoughts? That's what we want to learn. We want to learn how do I control bad thoughts, because I'm constantly battling bad thoughts. So there are a few hints or a few advice how to battle bad thoughts. The first and most important is that we can't think two things at the same time. We can't say two words at the same time. So if I already have a bad thought, the way to push the bad thought is to think about something else. There's no such a thing. There's not one human that can have two thoughts at the same time. You can only think of one thing at a time. So if I'm right away having now a bad thought, and I'm thinking about a certain individual that did something wrong to me, and I'm starting to develop World War III in my mind, what I'm going to say, how I'm going to react, what I'm going to do, how I'm going to do this, then you push away your thought with a different thought. Now, of course with a positive thought. Now, if you can't put a positive thought, then any thought. Because now I'm busy with this thought and not with that thought. So if you can put right away a positive thought, great, you're a winner. But if you can't overpower yourself with a good thought, then just, I don't know, it's just calculating numbers. 2 plus 2 is 4, and 52 plus 34 is 86, whatever it is. It's just to occupy your mind with a completely different thought. Even if it's irrelevant or just, that's another practice that I used to do. When I started working on my thoughts, how do you stop thinking about something bad? I would start calculating equations in my mind. Okay, 22 plus 22, 44. All right? Just so my mind will be busy with a different thought, then I get occupied from that thought. So this is the first advice, is you have a bad thought, think about something different. Now, our sages tell us, you want to battle a bad thought, say the verse from this week's parasha. Esh tamid tukad al hamizbeach lo tichbeh. And if that's not enough, then read the parasha of Torah Ta'olah. We read it every day. You can find it in your Siddur. Zot Torah Ta'olah. Hi Ola al Mogda. Esh tamid tukad al hamizbeach lo tichbeh. You read it. It's a couple paragraphs. But if you can control your thought, then you can say this verse. And this is a secret from our sages. Excuse me? It's in this parasha. The first portion of this parasha, Parashat Tzav, it says, Zot Torah Ta'olah, Hi Ola al Mokda. And just read this week's parasha, Parashat Tzav, open it. It's the first couple verses. It's called Parashat Ta'olah. Oh, it means that it's talking about the sacrifice that is called Olah, and that it has to be put on the altar and on a fire that burns constantly, doesn't turn off, and the sacrifice has to be burnt all night and all the way to the morning. It's just explaining to us the physical explanation of the
daily sacrifice.
Yeah, exactly, the daily sacrifice.
This is it for everybody.
But our sages teach us that the meaning behind it is that the fire is, we're talking about fire, the constant fire. Esh tamid tukad al hamizbeach. Esh tamid is a constant fire. Tukad al hamizbeach, it will burn on the altar. Lo tichbeh, never will turn out. The fire is hinting to the Torah, because fire can be very destructive, but fire can also be something very positive and something very good. I mean, without fire, you can't do many things. So the same thing is the Torah. The fire is a hint to the Torah. And the Torah can be, needless to say, very, very positive, but the Torah can also be destructive. If you misuse the Torah, it will become destructive. We just learned in the morning that if you learn Torah, it has to be for the sake of heavens. It has to be to elevate the Torah to Hashem. I can't have any ego here or any agenda when I'm learning Torah. But if I learn Torah not for the sake of heavens, then this Torah is impure. And we were learning this with this parasha. And when it says Esh Tamid Tukad, is that this Torah is going to have to be put on the fire of Gehenom to burn this Torah. Because it was done not for the sake of heaven. It was done with an agenda. It was done with ego or any type of arrogance. Then the Torah is worthless. If you were here yesterday for Suda Shlishit, I was mentioning, we were talking about the sacrifices, and I mentioned that there is an argument between Rambam and Ramban about the sacrifices. And Rambam says the sacrifices to atone for our sins, and the Ramban says no, it's not. The sacrifices are to arouse us to do tshuva. That I'm looking at the sacrifice and I say to myself, what is done to this animal was supposed to be done to me, and this should arouse in me to do tshuva, to repent. But nevertheless, there are many places in the prophets that their prophets are against sacrifices, that they talk against the actual ritual of sacrifices, which brings a big question, what, the prophets going against the Torah? So the explanation is that if you bringing a sacrifice, but your behavior is not appropriate, then your sacrifice is worthless. Basically saying, in other words, if you wear a nice black suit, and a nice black yarmulke and a beard, and you learn Torah, and you're in shul 3 times a day, but you steal, and you cheat, and you talk lashon hara, and you steal, and you cheat in business, whatever it is, your Torah is worthless. You think you're going to come with your Torah, and say, here, I learned Torah, I came 3 times a day to the minyan, but you cheat, and you steal, and you lie, and you hurt people, and you take advantage of people, and you slander people, and you talk Lashon Hara. What good is your Torah? Your Torah is worthless. Same thing here. What, do you think you're going to behave inappropriate against what the Torah says, and then you're going to come with a sacrifice? Here, forgive my sin. So that's where the prophet says your sacrifice is irrelevant. It has no meaning. First, behave like a mensch. I understand. We're all human. We will fail. We will make sins. But at least don't use that as an excuse to come with a sacrifice now and says, okay, forgive me. I did a mistake. So here the same thing. The Torah can be used as something positive, and the Torah can be used chas v'shalom against us and become something very negative. So the Torah, the fire on the altar, is a representation, so to say, of the Torah. Now, when it says in the beginning of the verse is starting with Tzav et Bnei Israel. Tzav is our sages explain this is lashon zrizut, when you do something fast. And if you read in the parasha, it says Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe le'emor Tzav et Bnei Israel le'emor, and then it goes into the parasha of the Olah. But it says the word Tzav et Bnei Israel. The translation is command the nation of Israel, the sons of Israel. But Tzav is coming from the word in Hebrew to do something quickly. Yesterday we read here from the Torah, and we called up the Kohen, then we called up the Levi, and I turned around, and there was maybe 20, 30 people here, and I mentioned, does anybody here didn't get an aliyah to the Torah in the last couple of weeks that needs an aliyah? And right away, within a split second, one young man said, me! I was like, okay, you got the aliyah? Come. And I called him up to the Torah. And I later on congratulated him. I told him, fast, you grabbed the mitzvah. I could have called anyone to the Torah. But some people, you believe it or not, some people don't get called to the Torah. You know that I lived one time in a certain neighborhood. I prayed in a shul for 2 years. Not even once I was called to the Torah. Once in 2 years. That's how pathetic they were there. And I mean, in one way I liked that shul because nobody bothered me. I was in a corner and I didn't like being bothered. I don't like being people talk to me in the shul. I like going and praying. But nevertheless, one time I wasn't called for the Torah. At some point I was like, I mean, that's kind of not nice. I mean, I pray here for 2 years. I'm not visiting you out of town. So nevertheless, so I know that sometimes people don't get called to the Torah. So since it was an extra aliyah, I just mentioned, who needs an aliyah? And this young man right away grabbed it. This is called zrizut. Right away, you have an opportunity, jump on it. You know, there's a lady in our community that now, Baruch Hashem, she's doing amazing. She started walking, but she was in a wheelchair for a very long while. And every time she would come here for the classes, and I would announce, can anybody please take her home? It's not so easy, it's going up the hill. And it was heartwarming to see that every time I would say, right away somebody would be like, I'll take her. You know, it didn't have to be too much thinking here. And one time, it was raining, it was cold, and one young man, he was like, I'll take her right away. And I told him, Kol hakavod, you know, you just grabbed the mitzvah, you don't even realize what you just did. You didn't even think for 1 second. You didn't think, I'm going to get wet, it's heavy, this, it's that, it's time consuming. It's like going up the hill with a wheelchair, that's not so easy. And not only that, it's raining, it's cold, and I told him, you didn't even think. Right away you grab the mitzvah. This is called zrizut. Right away you jump on it. You seize the opportunity. And you take it. And I told him, you don't even know what you did with your reaction right now. You gained your olam haba with one thing. You didn't even think, you didn't even tweak. How do you say twitch with your eyes? Right away. This is called zrizut. Tzav et Bnei Israel is that you do something quickly. When it says the word olah means to go up. And when I have a thought in Hebrew, I don't think you say it in English. In Hebrew, you say machshavot olot machshavot. Machshava ola li barosh. The thought comes up to my head. I don't know if we really use it really in English, but in Hebrew, that's what people say, that the thought came up, ala li machshava barosh. It came up to my head.
It just came in my head. Yeah, we say that in Massachusetts.
In Massachusetts? No?
It just came into my head. Yeah. Wow.
So in Hebrew we say that our thoughts come up into our mind. Same thing, the sacrifice. The sacrifice is called olah, that it goes up, and thoughts come up in my mind. I need to know how when a bad thought comes up in my mind, ba'esh tisaref. It has to be consumed by the fire. And the fire, we're not talking about fire here that I'm lighting fire. It is consumed with Torah. When my mind is soaked with Torah, then it will consume the thought. Then that's what I need to apply. So I have three ways how I control my thoughts, especially the bad thoughts. If you have a good thought, there's nothing to control here. You have to apply it. But unfortunately, we're all guilty of bad thoughts, and each one in their own severity. I want to know how to battle it. We're not looking here to point fingers. We're not putting now anybody to blame. We're looking for solutions. Comes the Torah and tells me, okay, I know you have bad thoughts. Because that's the way that the Yetzer Hara, he throws bait, and then away he wants to see what you're going to do with it. So, not too long ago I was in a lecture with a group of young men, and started a discussion. And one of the part of the discussion was with how do you control what you see? Men are not allowed to look in different places. Also, women should be very careful where they're looking. But men also, they have even a greater problem, looking at the other gender. And that's what we were talking about. And the question came out. One young man says, listen, sometimes I walk in the street and a beautiful woman is in front of me. What is that? And now I'm sinning. She's in front of me. So the rabbi of the yeshiva, he gave him a very interesting answer. And he told him, when you look in front of you, it's not your glare. You're not looking. You know when it's yours? When you go like this. That's already yours. So same thing with us with thoughts. The first thought that is thrown into my mind is not my thought. You know how we call it in Hebrew? Machshava zara. A foreign thought. It's not my thought. A thought is being thrown into my head. When I start developing the thought, that's already my thought. So the afterthought, you develop it, but nevertheless, a thought will be thrown into my head. If I right away push it away, then good, I won. But if I take the thought and I start developing it, and I'm starting to cooking the thought in my mind, that's already my thought, and that's where I already fail. So comes an advice here. How do you control your thoughts? And first of all, you think about something else. The second thing is that you read or you memorize or you chant the verse that I said, it has the power to reduce this. And of course, you want to make sure that your mind is soaked with Torah. Why? Because the Torah is fire, and the Torah will consume all these thoughts. And you have to put it to the test. So I know many ladies will come and say, listen, I'm not supposed to learn Torah. I don't know whoever said such a thing. Women are obligated in learning Torah, and they have to learn Torah. And if you don't have the patience or the time to learn Torah, then read 10 minutes, 15 minutes a day. You can read Tehillim. There's so many different things that a person can read, ladies or men. Men have an obligation, a chiyuv, they have to. But a woman is not exempt. Doesn't mean that she can't. A woman also has to learn. She has to know the laws, what to do, what not to do, what's kosher, what's not kosher, how to observe Shabbat, how to make sure they're guarding the tongue, no lashon hara. Nevertheless, you want your mind to be soaked with Torah. However you do it, whether you listen to a class, whether you attend a class, whether you read, as long as your brain is soaked with Torah, then the fire of the Torah will consume all these bad thoughts. If you have a lot of bad thoughts, it means that there's not enough Torah here. When the Shvatim, the brothers of Yosef, the tribes, when they threw him into the pit, it says that they threw him into an empty pit, and it says it was an empty pit and there wasn't any water in there. Why do I need to know that there's no water there? You just told me that the pit is empty. Of course there's no water if the pit is empty. So it says that not only that it was empty and there wasn't water there was scorpions and snakes there. Basically saying that water is corresponding to Torah. If there's absence of Torah, then there's going to be emptiness. If there's going to be emptiness, there's no Torah, what would you find there? Scorpions and snakes. which they represent evil and negative and bad thoughts. So I want to make sure that my mind is full of Torah. And when my mind is full of Torah, there's no emptiness there, there's no void there. The Torah is going to be the power that will burn all these bad thoughts. So practically saying, I also all day long we battle bad thoughts. Then we just gave a few good ways how to battle it. But needless to say that I have to make sure that if I constantly battling more bad thoughts, then learn more Torah. Put more Torah in your system. And you don't have to sit with the Gemara. Just read Tehillim. There's so many other things to do. Read Shir HaShirim, different Psalms, whatever it is. Commentary, you can learn. Everybody needs to learn, and you want to purify your thoughts. Once you get to that point, then your thoughts, they start coming down. You're not so judgmental in your thoughts. You don't think bad about people. You see a situation right away, you judge the person favorably. You don't develop, some people, they go into all these, I don't even know how to call it. Somebody says one word, and for 3 days you are preparing your speech in your mind. How are you going to say it? Because somebody did something irrelevant, and then that person doesn't even know what they said. And in your mind, you're preparing a 3-day speech. And I'm going to say this, and you're coming up with all the answers, how you're going to do it. Who needs this headache in your mind? But nevertheless, so we want to take from that, especially now, right before Pesach. Pesach is the time when I go out of my slavery. And my spiritual slavery is not carrying bricks, is that I don't know how to go out of my limitation. And I don't know how to control my thoughts, my desire, my urges. This is slavery. Mitzrayim is that I don't know how to say no. I don't know how to control myself. And I want to know how to control my emotions and thoughts and speech and actions. And the way to do it is to start applying it. And you start with controlling your thoughts. Because if you know how to control your thoughts, then needless to say that you start learning how to control your actions and your speech and your behavior. And now is the most auspicious time to do that, because when you prepare yourself the right way, comes Pesach, and on Pesach you have a jumping board. On the night of Leil Seder, all you need to do is follow the Leil Seder, and you have the spiritual jumping board to climb up, to have the power and the energy and the potential to fight anything that puts you under some type of a limitation. So I have to humble myself. The book of Vayikra starts with the word Vayikra, and the Aleph in Vayikra is very small, to teach me that any type of growth that I want to achieve has to become when I'm humble. That's why we deal with many challenges, because the challenge makes you humble. If you don't have a challenge and you come to the situation with a lot of arrogance and ego and I will be able to do it, then you're not going to be able to refine yourself and go over the challenge. So the Kadosh Baruch Hu constantly crushes us with challenges. Why? So I'm going to come to approach a situation with being humble after I've been crushed already. So I need to take that time, the learning. It's a very auspicious time now in the month of Nisan to really make an account of my behavior, of my thoughts, and know how to humble myself so I can start bringing this into action and to know how to put myself under control. Zad Hashem, we should merit to be very successful in growing spiritually and emotionally, to be able to go out of our limitations and into spiritual and physical freedom.